All right, let's get right into it. We're going on a world tour to look at four major powers: Sweden, the UK, the United States, and China. Now, each one has a totally different playbook for how they're going to power their future. So let's dive into the incredibly complex and fascinating world of global energy.
It seems like a simple question, doesn't it? But the real answer? It's so much more complicated than just putting up a few solar panels or wind turbines. To really get what's going on, we need to look way beyond the headlines. So this right here is probably the most important thing to understand from the get-go. On one side, you've got electricity generation. That's the stuff we hear about all the time. The power for our lights, our phones, electric cars. But total energy supply, well, that's the whole shebang. It's the gasoline in our cars, the natural gas that heats our homes, the energy that forges steel. Getting this difference is the key to seeing the real energy challenge.
First up, let's head over to Sweden. They're often held up as the poster child for decarbonization, and for good reason. They've built an energy system that most other countries can only dream of.
And wow, the results are just stunning. Take a look at their power grid. It is incredibly clean. We're talking less than 1% from fossil fuels. It's this amazing one-two punch of hydropower and nuclear energy that gives them a super stable, clean foundation, and on top of that, wind power is growing like crazy. But remember what we just talked about? Total energy? This is where it gets really interesting. Even in a pioneer like Sweden, fossil fuels still make up about a quarter of their entire energy diet. And that big chunk of oil you see? Yeah, that's almost all for cars, trucks, and planes. This shows you the massive difference between having a clean grid and having a totally clean economy.
And Sweden is not sitting still, not by a long shot. Their next challenge is absolutely massive. They're planning to double their electricity demand to power a whole new wave of green industries, like making steel without using coal. So for them, it's not just about staying clean, it's about scaling up clean energy on a level we've never seen before.
Okay, next up, the United Kingdom. This is a story of an incredible and really fast transformation. I mean, this is the nation that literally powered the Industrial Revolution on coal. And now, well, they've pretty much kicked the habit completely. And here's the proof. For the first time ever, renewables, mostly from huge offshore wind farms, are generating over half of all the UK's electricity. In coal, it's basically a rounding error now, down to about 1%. It's a truly remarkable success story. But you know the drill by now. When we zoom out to that total energy picture, a different story emerges. It's completely dominated by two other fossil fuels: oil for transportation and a huge amount of natural gas. So why all the gas? That question leads us right to the UK's single biggest hurdle. And this is it. It really comes down to this. The vast, vast majority of homes across Britain are heated by natural gas boilers. You see, cleaning up the power grid is one thing, but figuring out how to replace millions and millions of individual heating systems in people's homes, that is a whole different ballgame.
All right, let's hop across the pond to the United States. If you had to describe the U.S. energy scene in one word, it would have to be abundance. It is a true energy behemoth, producing massive amounts of just about everything.
Looking at their electricity, cheap and abundant natural gas is absolutely king. It generates over 40% of the power. But the really big story here is that renewables, mostly from wind and solar, have finally overtaken coal, which has been in a steep nosedive for years. The whole system is clearly in a massive transition.
But when you look at the total energy diet of the country, you can see that fossil fuels are still the main course, by far. We're talking nearly 3/4 of all energy consumed. Petroleum and natural gas just dominate the whole picture, with clean energy coming in at just over 1/5. And that enormous slice of petroleum, it points straight to the #1 challenge for the United States. The country's economy, its cities, its whole way of life is built around the car. So tackling emissions from transportation, that's the key to unlocking a low-carbon future for America. And finally, we turn to China, a country of just mind-boggling scale and, well, contradictions. It is, at the exact same time, the world's biggest builder of clean energy and, by a massive margin, the world's biggest user of coal. This chart really says it all. Coal still generates over 60% of China's electricity. But, and this is a huge but, look closer at that wind and solar number, 18%. What's absolutely astounding is that this share has doubled in just the last 4 years. The speed and scale of what's happening there is just unprecedented.
Now, when we look at total energy supply, coal's dominance becomes even clearer.
This is what fuels China's gigantic industrial engine. It powers everything from making steel to making cement. It accounts for well over half of the entire country's energy use.
And yet, this is that great contradiction we were talking about. This one statistic says everything you need to know about the insane pace of China's green push. Even while they're so reliant on coal, they are installing renewables at a speed the rest of the world can barely even imagine. Okay, so we've seen 4 very, very different stories. Let's do this. Let's put them all side by side and really see how they stack up against each other. This table is such a great snapshot. Just look down that top row. The main source of electricity is completely different in every country, from hydro in Sweden to coal in China. And check out the huge differences in coal use and nuclear power. You can see right here how each country's biggest challenge is totally unique to its own situation.
And if you want to see just one piece of that story visually, look at this chart on coal. The gap between China and the US on one side and the UK and Sweden on the other, it is just staggering. It really drives home how different the starting line is for each of these nations.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? If there's one thing to remember, it's this. There is no single, one-size-fits-all blueprint for a clean energy future. Every nation's path is being shaped by its own unique geography, its economy, and its history.
And this really matters for the whole world. It tells us that cleaning up the electric grid is absolutely critical, but it's only the first step. The much, much harder fights are going to be in how we heat our homes and how we get around. It proves that what works for Sweden just isn't going to work for China. Context is everything. So we're left with this big question. We have 4 totally different models for the future of energy. Will one of them win out, or will the future be more of a messy combination of all of them? It's something to think about. Thanks for digging into all this with me today.